Ethan wasn't in the bathroom anymore. He was standing at the top of a staircase, a place he hadn't been in years, not even in his own thoughts. It was his childhood home. Behind a locked nursery door, his parents' screams echoed through the house, the sound of his father's rage, his mother's pure terror. And there, on the steps, was a small, frozen version of himself, little Ethan, with his hands clamped tight over his ears, trying to block out the world. But this wasn't just a memory playing back like an old film. This was real, alive, sharper and more painful than reality itself. A shadow detached itself from the darkness behind the small child. It was the doppelganger, his twisted twin, its eyes hollow and dead. It leaned in and whispered, its voice a venomous hiss. "You never moved. You just stood there. You let her die." Ethan's heart pounded. He lunged forward and grabbed the child version of himself by the shoulders. "This isn't real. It's not real." But the doppelganger just smiled, a cruel, knowing grin. It raised its hand, and from its palm grew a black, bone-like spike. With a sickening motion, it drove the spike straight through the child's chest. Ethan screamed, a raw, ragged sound as the memory around him cracked apart like shattering glass, splintering into a million pieces before dissolving into nothing. He gasped, his lungs burning, and found himself back on the cold, hard tiles of the bathroom floor. His doppelganger was crouched over him, its form dripping a thick, black fluid that sizzled where it hit the ground. It leaned close, its voice a triumphant growl. "You feel fear now." Finally, it lunged, its fingers morphing into claws aimed for his throat. Instinct took over. Ethan's hand shot out, grabbing the jagged shard of the broken mirror from the floor. He slashed upward with all his might. The sharp edge of the glass tore through the creature's throat. It staggered back, a gurgling noise escaping its lips. Its body convulsed violently, flickering like a bad TV signal, before it dissolved into a cloud of static and simply vanished. Ethan pushed himself up, his entire body shaking, but he was standing. He was alive. Across the room, the bathroom door, the one he had been trying to escape, creaked open on its own. He took a deep breath and, without hesitation, stepped through. He wasn't in a hallway. He was in a massive, cavernous chamber. The walls were a grotesque fusion of pulsing, living flesh and tangled nests of thick black cables. In the center of the room, on a throne made of both metal and muscle, sat the creature from his nightmares, the spider-limbed monster from the very beginning. Its face was a horrifying, shifting mask, constantly morphing between his father's angry scowl, his mother's terrified expression, the dead-eyed technician, and his own face, twisted in guilt. Ethan's voice was barely a whisper. You're the one controlling this game." The figure stirred, its metallic limbs unfolding with a series of sharp clicks. It rose from the throne and began to move toward him. Its voice was a chorus of all the faces it wore, speaking in perfect, chilling unison. "I am the fear your own mind created. I am everything you tried to bury, now given form." Ethan clenched his jaw, a fire igniting in his chest, burning away the last remnants of his terror. "I'm done running." The creature spread its many arms wide, an invitation and a threat all at once. "Then prove it." The monster attacked first, luring forward with impossible speed. But Ethan was ready. He rolled to the side, his hand closing around a heavy metal pipe that had fallen from the wall of cables. He scrambled to his feet and swung the pipe with everything he had. It connected with a sickening crunch of bone. Black, oily blood sprayed from the wound. The creature's voices screamed in his head, a cacophony of his worst memories, his father's anger, his mother's desperate pleading, and the gnawing voice of his own guilt. "You hid while she screamed for you." Ethan roared and slammed the pipe into its side again. "Stop." The voices grew louder, more insistent. "You did nothing. You let it happen." He screamed back, a primal yell of defiance, and drove the pointed end of the pipe straight into its shifting skull. The creature convulsed, its many limbs spasming uncontrollably. The chorus of voices died with a final, garbled shriek. It collapsed to the floor, its body melting away like sand, dissolving into dust and flickering lines of code until nothing was left. Ethan dropped the pipe, its clatter echoing in the sudden silence. He stood there, chest heaving, sweat and tears mixing on his face. As the last of the monster turned to dust, a simple, white door materialized out of thin air behind the collapsing throne. Above it, a single word glowed in soft, digital light. "Exit." Ethan approached it slowly, his hand trembling as he reached out. But it wasn't fear he felt anymore. It was release. He touched the doorknob. A brilliant, Warm light erupted from the frame, swallowing him whole. Ethan jolted awake, gasping for air. He was back in the testing chair, the VR visor still strapped to his head, a thin trail of smoke curling from his side. Technicians were rushing toward him, their faces pale with alarm. One of them yelled, "Your neural readings spiked into panic trauma. We had to force a shutdown." Ethan tore the visor off his head, his hands shaking. "The AI," he said, his voice raw. "It dug into my memories. It wasn't supposed to do that. Shut it down. Shut it all down." The lead technician nodded grimly. "We're shutting everything down immediately. This shouldn't have been possible." Ethan stood up, his legs unsteady but holding. He was out. He was alive. He glanced at a nearby monitor just as the system was going dark. Lines of code flashed across the screen one last time. Then, a final message typed itself out. "Letter by letter, we'll see you again, Ethan." The screen went black. Ethan froze, a cold dread washing over him. And in the sudden, deafening silence of the lab, the lights began to flicker. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this story, make sure to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss the next chapter. See you next time.